Always a pleasure to welcome James Nichols into the show. He covers the New Jersey Devils for NJ Hockey Now. And what an interesting team what an interesting start to the year for this Devils team, James. They're top in the Metro, but they came into the year, as weird as it was after a season where they missed the playoffs, as one of the top betting odds favorites to win the Stanley Cup. So they're top in the Metro. And I'll ask you, have they looked like a Stanley Cup contender through 1 month?
Tough question. But it's interesting. I think that they definitely look a lot better. I think they're definitely a playoff team. But I still think that they're trying to figure out exactly who they are and what kind of team they want to be. It's starting to come together now as we're getting closer to game 20. The Sheldon Keefe system is starting to become more comfortable. But there is a little bit of a fatigue factor. I think that's setting in just because of how early they started, and they've had a bit of tough travel with going to Prague and then another long Western Canada road trip that happened last week, and they're actually going on another one starting today. So it's not too far. It's just they're just going to Florida, but they have admitted the travel has been a little bit tough to deal with in the fatigue sense, but things are trending in a good direction. I think that they're finally starting to understand the system that they're expected to play. And I don't know if you've seen Jack Hughes over the last couple of games, but he's definitely back. So um, things are looking up.
James, you used the word system a couple of times in that answer. So I'm just going to build off of that and ask you, what big differences have you seen, from last year's team to this Sheldon Keefe coach team when it comes to system or structure? I know there's a lot of different ways you can phrase it, but what's jumped out at you the most?
Yeah, it's funny enough, it's relatively the same. It's just really sharpening the fine details. And what Sheldon Keefe has preached this year for the most part has been just do everything faster. Get to the puck faster, win your puck battles faster, and just sprint to every battle. Whether that's retrieving the puck or dumping it in and chasing it, however that looks. He just wants everybody to do everything a little bit faster. So it makes for very intense practices. When they do get to practice, again, the travel has been so crazy, but it's relatively the same, high skill, high rush team, that can score at the drop of a dime on the rush. But at the same time, he's also, introducing a lot of physicality, and that happened with the players they acquired too, your Paul Cotters and your Brendan Dillons. But it's again primarily just a high skill team on the rush who's now also adding that physical element and defending much better.
I wanted to ask you a bit about the captain, Nico Hischier, as someone who's just kind of looking at the stats and the game logs for this Devils team. I'm sitting here going, man, he's already a third of a way to his career high in goals. He's got 10 in 18 games. Career high is 31. I know he hasn't scored in 5 games here. And I guess what I want to know is this a different Nico Hischier this year, or was that just a little early season shooting percentage heater where a bunch of bounces went his way? Is it just a heater, or is he a goal scorer now?
Yeah, I think that he wasn't going to shoot 23%. That was the last I checked the whole season. So you're starting to see that come back down to earth a bit. But overall, I do think he's had to take a little bit less responsibility as a whole, just because of his line mates. Now he's playing regularly with Dawson Mercer, who does help him defensively. And Timo Meyer is no slouch in that department either. He's been excellent in all three zones for that line. So it's a really it's a really strong line both ways, and that's helped him out a lot. They've been able to maybe do a little bit more of the dirty work, and he does have a really good shot. He can be a goal scorer, and that 30 goal season he had was no fluke. So it would not be a surprise to see him do it again. However, he was on like a 63 goal pace like a week ago. So I don't think that that's going to end up being the way it is. But it shouldn't be a surprise to see him score another 30, 35 goals this year, and absolutely be a contender for that Selkie with his game on the defensive side of the puck.
Do they need anything? Like, obviously, it was such a busy offseason. You pick up Pesci, you pick up Dylan, you give up your first round pick to get Jacob Markstrom as well. I mean, you can go back to last year's deadline when they went and got Jake Allen, too. Do you think GM Tom Fitzgerald will get up to anything over the next few months here during the season, or is this roster just kind of set?
Yeah, it's funny. I think that they've flipped needs. Last year it was goaltending and defense. This year I think it's the forward group. They lost Tyler Toffoli. They traded him at the deadline. They didn't necessarily replace him, right? You see down at the bottom there, they got Thomas Tatar, but he's not going to necessarily replace that 35 goal pace that Toffoli left, right? And the expectation is a guy like Dawson Mercer or Timo Meyer are going to fill that role. And Meyer has done his part. Mercer's starting to come on a little bit better, but he's not necessarily filling the net as much as they may have hoped. So in terms of forwards, I think they potentially would want to look for a guy who's a sniper, right? Somebody who could just change the game at the snap of a wrist. And I'm not exactly sure what form that comes in. I look at guys like maybe Frank Vetrano, depending on the direction the Islanders want to go, and a guy like Brock Nelson. Um, those would be some interesting guys. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. And the second thing that comes to mind, and I'm actually going to be publishing this later today. I'm not thrilled with their fourth line right now. Obviously, they have some injuries to Curtis Lazar, Nathan Bastian, but it's not sustainable for them to roll out Curtis McDermott 6 minutes a night and Justin Dowling 7 minutes a night. I mean, honestly, that's hurting Thomas Tatar, who's also only getting about 7 minutes a night. So they're going to need more from their fourth line. I wonder if they go out and acquire some depth, whether that be through waivers or a trade, or maybe make a recall for someone like Shane Bowers, who I think would be a really good fit on that fourth line at center.
James, as always, man, really appreciate your time. You can find his work at NJ Hockey Now. Find him on Twitter at James Nichols NHL. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.